This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Bruchim Haba, and welcome everyone to our next edition of the Haftorah series, Parshas Vayeira. Parshas Vayeira, the Haftorah, is from Sefer Melachim Beis, Parak Daled, Pasuk Aleph, through Lamed Zayin. It's a big one. 37 psukim. And so first what we'd like to examine is what is the connection between the Haftorah and the Parsha. Well, obviously, just like in the Parsha, the Malachim come to Avraham and they tell Avraham, Ka'es chaya v'hine ven l'sara ishtecha, that they tell Avraham at this time next year, Sarah will have a child. So too, we have in the Haftorah, there's a woman from the wives of the Bnei Hanavim. She cried out to Elisha, saying, my husband died. And Elisha says, what could I do? And she said, I have nothing in the house. And the whole story. So he says, close the door and pour into all the kalim. And all the kalim were full of oil. Fine. Then the Navi tells us that Elisha came to Shunamis. And there was a great woman there. And she pressured him to come eat. And whenever Elisha came to that city, he would always go there. And the woman said to her husband, I know that this man is an Ish Kadosh. Let's make him a special quarters, and we'll make him a bed and a table and a chair and a menorah. And whenever he comes, he'll come here. And the day came, and he came there, and he went to his quarters, and he lay there. And then now, by the way, the Medrash says that this woman was never blessed with children. The Isha Shunamis was never blessed with children. The Medrash says that what segula is there for a person to be zoicha to have children? The Medrash says, hachnasas orchim. Just like Avraham was nisbaser, that Yitzchak would come, that Yitzchak would be born when he was machnes orchim. Likewise, the Isha Shunamis, because she built special quarters to be machnes orchim, therefore she was zoicha to have children. Now, people, just as an aside, people make a big mistake when it comes to Achnasas Orchim. They think, Achnasas Orchim, I'm going to invite my friends from across the street for a meal. That's probably not Achnasas Orchim. What do you mean for a meal? And what? They're going to be homeless if you don't invite them? They're going to have the chicken in their house if you don't invite them. Achnasas Orchim are people who don't really have a place to eat. People who, lonely, that kind of thing. Okay. But be it as it may, the Navi continues. And Elisha tells his attendant, Gehazi, call the woman, and she stands before him. And he says, you went through all the trouble for making me the special quarters. Is there anything I could do for you? Could I speak to the king? Could I speak to an officer? And by the way, the Zohar says this occurred on Rosh Hashanah. And she said, no, I don't need anything. But Gehazi tells Elisha, what do you mean? This woman doesn't have a child. So Elisha says, call her again. And she stands by the entrance of the door, and he says in Pasuk Tazayin, Vayomer la'moyed hazeh ka'es chaya, at this time, as the time that lives, at chayvekes bein, you will be embracing a son. So a few questions here. Number one, there's a Greek sieve here. Why is it spelled Aleph Taf Yud? We read it at, but why is it spelled Aleph Taf Yud? Number two, why does he say Chayvekes Bein? You'll be hugging a kid. I don't think she cares that much whether she'll be hugging the kid or not. Say this time you'll have a kid. Also Chayvekes, that's like a double lashon. It could say Chayvek. It's going on her. Okay. Why is the Navi saying that this time next year you'll be hugging a child? So sure enough, she conceived and she gave birth, Ka'es Chaya, that Elisha said to her. And the child grew up, and he went out to the harvesters, and then he tells his father, Roishi, my head. He had a headache. Why does the Navi say that he said my head twice? It could have saved the real estate. Every word costs money. When you go to graphic designer, you pay for every letter. The Torah's real estate is even more expensive. Why does it say Roishi twice? And why is there a psik in between the two Roishis? So how many questions is that? That's like 5 questions already. Fine. And then what happens? So carry him to the mother. Why to the mother? I don't understand. You're the father. Your kid is dying. You take care of the kid. Why does he say carry him to the mother? So they bring him to the mother, and she sat on her legs until the evening. What's he doing on her legs? And what does she do? She puts him on the bed of Elisha. Okay, what's that going to do for him? And she closes the door. And then she sends a message to her husband, fetch me a lad. I need to go to the Elisha. And the husband says, why? Why are you going to him? It's not Shabbos. From here we learn that you have to visit the Rabbi on Shabbos, on Yom Tif. So she saddles the donkey, and she said, let's go to the man of God. And he sees her, and he tells Gehazi, the Shunamis is coming. Go toward her, see if everything's okay. So she comes to the man of God. Vatachazik beraglav. She grabs his legs. Scandal over here. What in the world is going on? Why is she doing that? So Gehazi wants to push her away. He says, no, let her be. She's very embittered. And then she says, did I ask? Didn't I tell you I don't want a kid? I said, don't mislead you. Don't mislead me. Why'd you do this? You gave me a kid and now he's dead? So he says to Gehazi, gird your loins and take my stick. And we gotta go quick. Don't answer anybody if they talk to you. And she says, do not forsake me. Fine. So Elisha comes to the house, and then the kid is dead there on the bed. So he closes the door, and he davens to Hashem. And what does he do? He puts his mouth on his mouth, his eyes on his eyes, his hands on his hands. He breathes, and all of a sudden the kid turns warm again. Vayashav, and he withdrew. Vayelech babayis achas heino, once this way, v'achas heino, and once that way. What in the world is Elisha doing? It's like he's dancing on some Haftorah like a Rebbe, with this way, that way. What's going on over here? And then he tells Gehazi, call the woman, and she came, and he says, take your kid, and she falls on his feet, and she takes the kid, and the story's over. Okay, it's a nice story. What's his business? She's grabbing his legs. She falls to the feet by his legs. Why is he going this way? Why is he going that way? What's going on over here? There's an astounding revelation of the Zohar and the Arizal. Kemat, we don't really know what it means, but let's just get the words. First of all, we have to try to know who's the kid. Who is this child who Elisha brings back to life? There are different opinions. The Zohar says, Lebasar miss. My time a miss. I mean, if the Navi says you're going to have a kid, why'd the kid die? Ela begin this Yahiv la v'loy labala. Because he gave it to her and not to the husband. Because the kid came to her and not to him. And therefore, since it came to her, the kid was attached to her. The kid was attached to the female side. And the female side has no source of life. Says the Zohar, Umei asar denukva skashar uman deskasha benukva misas damnas kame. One who's tied to the feminine side doesn't have a source of life. Minalan, dela is yahav dechsiv at choyvek es bein. You will be. Why didn't Elisha say ka'is chaya atem choyvkin bein? You girl, you woman, you're going to have the child. But a child that is only attached to the tzad nekeva doesn't have a source of life. That's why it says ad chayvek es bein. The same thing by Avraham Avinu. Shoiv ashuv elecha v'hinei ben l'sara ishtecha. Sarah's going to have a child. And as we're going to see, Yitzchak could not have children. Yitzchak was not capable of having children. You know why? Because his neshama was from the feminine side. And as we're going to see, certain episodes in the Parsha, and this is something we had a shiur on in past years, Yitzchak's gender of his neshama changed. and that allowed him to have a child. But in the beginning, V'hine ben l'Sara ishtecha. Yitzchak was ascribed to Sarah. Ve'ele todos Yitzchak ben Abraham. Oh, wait a second. In Vayeira, all of a sudden, V'hine ben l'Sara ishtecha, and todos Yitzchak ben Abraham. What happened? His association changed from Sarah to Yitzchak. Now, a baby needs to associate with the mother, Kabbalistically. Uber Yerach Imai. But once you develop Bra Kara de Avuha. That's the way it's supposed to be. Not saying, this is a Kabbalistic concept. Uber Yerach Imai, Bra Kara de Avuha. We're going to see this is a concept that the Ben Ish Chai develops in the Birchas Chaim. And this is what the Zayar says, that at first this child was attached to the Tzad Nakvos, and then so this child was given to her, to Isha Shunamis, like by Avram. Vatal vatashkivei al mitas isholikim. You know why she put him on his bed? Begin the taman chamas kedusha ila mikaila. She saw kedusha there, but as we're going to see, she realized the kid needs a source of life from Zachros. So she said, "You know what, Elisha, you got to change. You got to change what's going on over here." And then the Zohar continues, Vayasam piva piva ina valina v'amai ela da'ashkach Elisha v'yada da'asra. He knew that the woman dahu dega'aram de'iskasha be'hashta Vayasam piva piva ina valina v'lekasha ba'asra achara. Elisha had to change the source of this kid's life. Take him out of the tzad nakvos and put him into the tzad of zachros. So you say, I don't know what this means. Neither do I. I'm just telling you what the Zohar says. Okay? The Arizal continues on this theme in the Sharab Sukkim. Who was the child that Elisha brought back to life? Chavakuk. Now there is opinion it was Yonah. But the Zohar learns it was Chavakuk. Chavakuk, where do you get? At choivekes bein. Chavakuk. And then the Arizal, now who wrote the Svarim of the Arizal? Chaim Vital. He writes something I'm not familiar with any other time where he writes this. He says, number 8, V'hine Yitzchak v'Chavakuk heimi b'chinas trein ruchin shachachti ma sheshamati mimoiri b'inyan zeh eza mehen hu Yitzchak v'ezen hu Chavakuk. Says Rav Chaim Vital, the Arizal told me something about Yitzchak and Chavakuk coming from two different sides. I forgot who comes from which side. He says one derech is maybe he said like this, and maybe a different derech like that. Okay, I've just brought that in because I thought it was interesting. Here, the Rav Chaim Vital, he said, I don't remember what my Rabbi said. Based on the above introduction, the Ben Ish Chai explains the whole storyline of this week's Haftorah, and we'll see how closely it's connected to the Parsha. Look at number 9. It says, it's written et, but we read it at. And they're both true. Actually, you're going to hug the kid twice. Number 1, the first time it's going to be kri, at. You're going to hug it because it's going to be your kid. But then the kid's going to die, and I'm going to have to bring him back to life, and then it's going to be et because of me, choivekes bein, you're going to hug the kid. So that's why it's a kriksiv. You're going to hug this kid twice. One it's going to be at, and one it's going to be et. The Ben Ish Chai continues. What's the inyan of ka'es chaya ad choivekes bein? He was prophesying that the child will be misitra denukva, from the female side. Therefore he will not live. V'zeh she'amar ka'es chay hey. He will live from the hay, from min ha-hay, sitra denukva. We'll see what that means. 1 second, we'll see. That also explains the at and the et. First, the kid will become at, meaning from the sitra denukva. But achar kach, it will be et. The source of the kid's life will come from me, and his neshama's connection will be through my connection, and he will get a neshama mitzad zachros, and he'll have a source of life. So the kid says, Roishi, psik, Roishi. What's the secret of Roishi, Psik, Roishi? So says the Ben Ish Chai, based on the Zohar, that at first the kid's neshama was Misitra de Nukva, that's why he died. And then Elisha brought him back to life, Misitra de Duchra. So he had two heads. He had two Roshim. His father, who only gave him a neshama mitzad nakvos, and then Elisha. That's Roishi. Psik represents his death, and Roishi represents his second source of life, says the Ben Ish Chai. Now, the Vav, now a Psik is like what letter? A Vav. Does anybody know? Al Pi Kabbalah, what does the letter Vav represent? Say, how would I know? Every Jew has to know this. It's a Beis Yosef. Does anybody know what is Tachnon? Can I have a siddur? Right over there.
What is
Tachnon? What parak is Tachnon? What? L'David Hashem Nafshi Esa. So Ashkenazim say the wrong parak. We say parak Vav. But that's not the right Tachnon. The right Tachnon is Chafei. L'David Eilecha Hashem Nafshi Esa. That's the way Sfardim say it. That's the correct Tachnon. The only thing is, Ashkenazim do Tachnon right, we put our heads down. Sfardim don't do it right. So nobody does it right. And the reason nobody does it right is because the Zohar says if you say Tachnon without Kavanah, it's a terrible repercussions, and therefore nobody says a full Tachnon. So we don't say the right parak, and Sfardim don't do it correctly. That's a different problem. That's beyond the scope of today's share. So, in Parak Chaf Hey, what are you doing when you say Tachnon? What is Tachnon? Oh, Shemana Esrei wasn't long enough. That's why. So the Zohar says the purpose of Tachnon is your moiser. You say Hashem, I would give up my life al Kiddush Hashem. But don't come to Hashem with these grandiose, promises, and you don't mean it. God said, don't waste my time. You want to down Shemana Esrei. Don't tell me promises of things you're going to do, and So therefore, the Zohar says there's one ois in the Aleph Beis that's not represented in Tachnon, the ois Vav. You have Elokai Aleph, B'cha Beis, Gam Gimel, D'rachecha Dar, Hadricheni Hey, Zechar Achamecha. There's no Vav. The Zohar says the reason there's no Vav, the whole purpose of Tachnon is to be Moiser Nefesh HaKadosh Hashem. The Vav represents the Eitz HaChayim, the tree of life. It's not a Makoim in Tachnon to say the Ois Vav. But the Psik, I'm just giving you an example of how do we know the Ois Vav is Chayim. The Psik is the Vav. Meaning, there's a Psak Beineim, which represents his Misa. But since he came back to life, the Psik takes on the form of a Vav, which is the symbol of life. Okay. So listen to this. Go to number 10 and paragraph Va'aviv Amar El Anar Sa'eo El Imai. The father says, carry him to the mother. But what the father is saying is, right now, this kid, the reason he's dying is because he's attached to the mother, to the Tzad Nukvas. That's Begeder Ubar Yarach Imai, the Gemara in Gittin says on Daf Chaf Gimel Amud Beis. Ubar Yarach Imai. And he's not Bra Kara Davua. He's not the legs of the father. So when the kid was brought to the mother puts him on her legs, understanding right now he's dying because he's so to speak attached to her legs, not like other sons who are attached to the legs of their father, of Bra Kara Davua. So therefore she puts him on the bed of the man of Elohim, so that somehow he could get a neshama mitzad zachros. So she comes to the Ish Elohim, v'atachazek b'raglav. She grabs his feet. Says the Ben Ish Chai, the remez is this kid is dying because he's uber yerach imai. He needs somehow to get yerachayim kroim mitzad zachros. So this woman grabs the raglayim of Elisha, indicating he needs to be attached to Raglav of the Tzad Zachar.
You think she doesn't mind? I think she's desperate. She doesn't have it.
She knew the share. And therefore, Hachzika Baraglav Shalisha, says the Ben Ish Chai, Lirma is like, He benatzarch ata l'raglav, to be Mesiachis Achar Raglav. Therefore, Elisha says, send Gehazi. Listen to what Elisha did. He knew this whole plan. He says, Gehazi, Chagar masnecha, gird your loins, v'kach mishanti v'yadcha, take my staff in your hands and go. Why was it necessary for Gehazi to take his stick? Let the stick helps the raglayim, it helps you walk. Maybe if you have the stick, and she'll be able to lean on it, ki'ilu, she was relying on my raglayim. She said, no. Don't, none of this fake leg business. I need my kid to have a shoresh of chiyos through your legs mamish. That's why, kitzach l'raglecha mamish. So, he said, okay, I'll give you my raglayim. And after he finished doing his magic, after he did what he needed to do, vatavai vatipol al raglav, the Navi ends. Okay. How did he bring the kid back to life? You ready for this? Don't try it at home. Rashi Masechta Sukkah says that how many names does Hashem have? 72 names. Where do these 72 names come from? It comes from 3 consecutive psukim in Parshas B'Shalach. What are the 3 consecutive psukim? Vayisa, Vayavoy, Vayet. Vayisa, Vayavoy, Vayet. These 3 psukim all have 72 letters each. Rashi says, through a formula called Yosher, Hafuch, and Yosher, you can make 72 different names of Hashem. You take the Vav of Vayasa, you take, that's the first pasuk of the first letter of the first pasuk. You take the Hey of Vayavoy, the last pasuk of the second pasuk. You take the Vav of Vayet, which is the first letter of the last pasuk, and through the principle of Yosher, Hafach, and Yosher, you make the first name, which is Vahai. Then you take the second letter of the first pasuk, the second to last of the second of the third, and you make the second name of Hashem, and thereby you make 72 different names of Hashem. Incredibly, it's brought in the Sefer Shar Ma'amorei Rashbi, as well as in the Kihilas Yaakov of Rabbi Yaakov Yules. He says, the father of Chavakuk, when this kid was born, he only had 216 letters, mitzad nekeva. And when he died, they left, and when Elisha came, he had to return it to him, this time 216, from tzad zachrus. Fasten your seatbelts. We said that this kid is Chavakuk. What's the gematria of Chavakuk? Ches is 8, Beis is 2, 10, Kuf, 110, Vav, 116, Kuf, 216. Chavakuk is gematria 216. So the Navi Elisha needed to re-add the 216 letters. This time not mitzad nakvos, but mitzad zachros. And therefore, he pronounced the 216 letters. By the way, through the number 216, that's how Moshe Rabbeinu split the Yam Suf. And that is how Elisha brought the kid back to life. Chavakuk is gematria 216. Now, what's the process of getting to 216? What is the formula called? I said it now about 3 times so far in the share. What's the formula called? Yosher, Hafuch, Yosher. Which is called, what's the understanding of that expression? The first, the last, the first. The second to first, the second to last, the second, right? That's the formula. Therefore, Elisha needs to use this formula and put these letters back in the kid. Therefore, the same way, if you ever went to a Simchas Torah by a Rebbe, and they're making certain dances, what are they doing? They're mechavein, like to almost spell out different shemais. Elisha knew he had to use the formula, forward, backward, forward. That's why the pasuk says that in order to bring the kid back to life, what does it say? Achas heina, one time this way he went, v'achas heina, he was literally walking and using a payal demyoini to act out the formula of the procedure of these 72 ICIs. Saying, yeah, I knew this whole thing. I knew that's Pshat in this week's Haftarah. I always knew that. I'm just reminding you what you knew already. Right?
72 times the names?
How I guess I don't have a video of what he did exactly, but that's what the Ben Ish Chai says. He says the Ben Ish Chai, we know the procedure of the getting the 72 names is Yoisher, Hafach, and Yoisher. V'nei Elisha Hanavi halach bebayis ahur. I'm in number 16. The bottom line on the right-hand column. V'nei Elisha Hanavi al Vashalom halach bebayis ahur shesham anar achas heina v'achas heina. Yeah? V'yaz v'chazar Chalila darach zeh lasas paya adam yoni b'zeh shebe'ez hiluchai achas heina v'achas heina dainu me'rosh habayis l'soifa me'ser l'roshai. He came in this way is mechavein to the 216 letters from the 72 letters of those psukim, and vayala lamita vayigar olav to be moishech them, that he gathered them in that particular way. Okay. So Vayikra, look at number 17. Vayikra el Gechazi, Vayomer, Kro el Shunamis hazois. Vayikra, Vatavai, Vayomer, Si'i Banech. The Haftarah concludes, carry your son. What are the letters Si'i? The letters Si'i, no? Si'i, number 17, the second to last. What are the letters Si'i? Ish. I've turned him back. His neshama is now mitzad ish. He's bechinas zachar, not bechinas nekeva. Now the ben Shunamis realized that at first the kid's neshama was misitra de nukva, and therefore is loy neskayim, and now it's misitra de duchra, and now it's neskayim. Who is this kid? Chavakuk. Which Navi clearly prophesies about the coming of the Mashiach? Chavakuk. He's the one who explicitly says, Al Mishmarti, Al Moidaviyas, Yatzva, Al Motzar, Va'atzap Elirois, Ma Yidaberbi, Vayanini Hashem, Vayomer, Kesoiv, Chazoin, Uvoyer, Al Haluchais. That the Yalkut Shemaini says, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Chavakuk, write Aleph on the board, and then say, let me know the Kates. So it comes out, an interesting phenomenon, says the Ben Ish Chai, that Chavakuk was the Navi who wrote the coming of the Geula, but more than writing the coming of the Geula, his life personified, his life personified the procedure of Geula. How's that? Let's think about the life of Chavakuk. At first he was Nishmas Nekeva, he died, he came back to life, and then he was Nishma Zachar. Whatever that means. That is a dugma to the Geula. Say, what? What is after the Geula? What are you going to do with that? Take a look at number 19 for a moment. Kol HaShirois, says the Medrash in B'Shalach, Shenemru Ba'olam, L'shoy Nekeva. All Shira that's said in this world is Lashon Nekeva, Loimar. Just like a woman gives birth and then gives birth again, so too we could sing Shira, but we're going to have another tzara that we're going to have to sing Shira from. Meaning, just like a woman who gives birth again, so too when we sing Shira, we're going to have to sing Shira again. So all the songs in the history are Nekeva. You say, what? Yeah! Az Yashir Moshe B'nai Yisrael Es Hashira Hazois. Shira is Lashon Nekeva. But La'asad Lavai Ba'isa Sha'imrim Shir Lashon Zachar Shiru Hashem Shir Chadash. That means the Geulas of Olam Hazeh are Nekeva. Nekeva means temporary, but the Geula La'asad Lavai is Zachar, meaning there's nothing after it. It's permanent. Shiru Hashem Shir Chadash. Likewise, the Geula is represented by the life of Chavakuk, whose neshama was at first Nishmas Nukva, and then Nishmas Zachar. Says Ben Ish Chai, bottom paragraph, middle column in number 3. V'hinei dugma zeh timtza gam be'inyan gulas Yisrael. Ki amru Rabbi Seinu kol ha'ge'ulos hayu b'chinas nekeva. All the ge'ulos were in the level of feminine, therefore there was shibud. Therefore it says shira. It says shira azois, but la'asalava it's going to say shir Hashem shir chadash. The kavana is, listen to this. All the previous ge'ulos came through the Shem Adnas, Aleph Daled Nun Yod, which is the side of Nekeva. The ge'ula Asida, the Meher of Yameinu, is going to be the Shem Havaya, which is Zachar. How do I know Shem Havaya is Zachar? Adoi Shem Ish Melchamaha Hashem Shema Yud Kei Vav Kei is Bechinas Ish. This is the meaning, says Ben Ish Chai, of the pasuk in Tehillim. Take a look at number 23. Uletzion yeyamar. To Zion it will be said, Ish ve'ish yulad ba. A man and a man will be born in it. V'hu yichaneneha el yain. What does this mean? La'asad lavai. The geula of Tzion will be bebechinas ish. And therefore we're going to say Shiur. And therefore, v'hu yichaneneha el yain. Why did we leave Mitzrayim? V'hi she'amda lavoseinu. Why is Mitzrayim v'hi? Say because in Mitzrayim everyone was Hasidish, so they said v'hi she'amda. Yeah, well you laughed at that one. You're a good audience. Okay, why is it v'hi she'amda? Because Mitzrayim was bebechinas he, she. But lachein they were shibud. But shalai echad bavad b'chol dar vadar oimdim alein al chaliseinu. Meaning, because Mitzrayim was v'hi, therefore b'chol dar vadar they continue to do it, and only Hakadosh Baruch Hu could take us out. This is the secret of zecher afsal and ifla'osav, a remembrance God made for His wonders. It could be read zachar with a kamatz, meaning. Zachar asa neflaisav. God acts masculine in order to bring the Gula Shlema. This is what it means. Sheb shefleinu. In our low status, in the final redemption, in the final exile, Zachar lanu. God will act as a Zachar, Kili Olam Chazai, and bring the Gula Shlema. Mar Rabbi Sai. Now we know the deeper meaning of the connection between the Haftorah and the Parsha. Because what happened to Chavaka Kanavi is exactly what happened to Yitzchak Avinu. How's that? Because when Yitzchak was born, Shaiv Ashvailecha Ka'is Chaya Ulasara Bain, Yitzchak had a neshama mitzad nakvas. You know why Avram Avinu didn't marry off Yitzchak? At first, there was no point. He couldn't have children anyway. The Or Chaim HaKadosh writes, in at least 5 places that I'm aware of on this week's Parsha, next week's Parsha. I don't have them all on the sheet. We have a whole shiur just on this subject. That Yitzchak Avinu started off mitzad nakvas, attributed to Sarah Imenu. That's why Avram didn't marry him off. Oh, says the Pirkei Rebbe Lezer. But when he got to the Akedah, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Kivan she'egia acher val tzavoroi, parcha v'yatsa nishmasoi shel Yitzchak. Yitzchak's neshama left. When he heard the voice come, mi bein shnei akruvim, al tirzach yad anar, chazra hanefesh, and he stood up, and Yitzchak made the first bracha, Baruch atah Hashem mechayei amesim. Says Or Chaim HaKadosh, why shoiv ashav elecha? There are at least 5 Or Chaim HaKadoshes on this. I just brought one. He says, Kishanelad Yitzchak lo haya roi lo haylid ki ba misitra denukva. But when the Akedah came, his neshama left. A new neshama came. He had neshama mitzad Avram. What's the third? Oh, as soon as the Akedah is over, Avram says we got to marry him off. Wait a second. 37 years, you're not in a rush. You know, he's getting older and older. All of a sudden, 37 years, he marries him off? Yeah, because now he's eligible. So it comes out, Rabbi say, the Haftorah and the Parsha, they're not just like some loose connection. It's a very, very parallel on many, very deep levels. Now, what exactly this means, I don't know. I'm just reporting to you the facts. And I don't necessarily recommend that, you're going to come home and have a beautiful Vart to tell over the Shabbos table. Use your discretion how and where you say this over. But I'm just telling you that, you read the Haftorah, it's a nice story. There's a lady, she grabs the legs of Elisha, and what's that all about? And Rabbi say every detail of the Haftorah, the Chazal who incorporated the Haftorah as part of the program for Shabbos morning, it's an exact parallel. So these are just some of the Neflois Haftorah we should be Zoicha. The Rebbe Shem should show us Mitayrasai Neflois Agon Shabbos.
Thank you very much.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.